Hello Nidorinas and Nidorinos, I'm KingNido, and today it is the Laverre Constrictors going up against the Turrfield Ebonies. And as these two sides have a look at their opening hands, let's have a look at the tail of the tape between the two, because for the Laverre Constrictors, they're currently sitting in 6th place. They're one spot out of the top 5 and they want to return to Victory Road after having missed out last season. Whereas for the Turrfield Ebonies, they're in 8th place, but they have never missed a game inside Victory Road, but also they've never won a game inside Victory Road. But with all that said, let us know in the comments below who you think is going to win this matchup. Will it be the Psychic decks? Will it be the Grass decks? Let's go!
3, 2, 1, go!
And it was actually inside Victory Road of Season A1 the Constrictors did eliminate the Ebonies, as it is the Morlul from the Lush Jungle deck of the Ebonies going into the active spot up against the Tapu Lele for the Constrictors from their Ruins of Life deck. And it is the Constrictors going first, playing their Professor's Research to draw the Trevenant and the Oricorio. We can see they've got the Bayonet in hand as well, plus the Poison Barb, the Big Malasada and the Guzma. And it is the Poison Barb going on to the Tapu Lele here, as Morlul only requires 1 energy to go on the offensive. The Constrictors are trying to deter that, as it is the Pokeball being pulled for the Ebonies here, and they've got the Fomantis and the Lurantis in hand, plus the Leaf Cape and the Mallow, as they do pull the Wimpod thanks to that Pokeball. And now they are going to move the Fomantis on to the bench, which they could have actually done at the start of the game, so an interesting choice there, as the Wimpod also goes onto the bench and Morlul does receive its first energy. This Stampede only does 10. If it does go on the offensive, it will be taking 10 damage in between each side's turn thanks to that Poison Barb, and they're still going ahead with it here, so they will get that 10 damage onto the Tapu Lele. But there is that Poison Barb being activated, bringing the Morlul down to 50 health as it comes back over to the Constrictors, and they do pull the Phantom, already having their Trevenant in hand, so that Phantom immediately goes onto the bench. And with this energy arrow of the Tapu Lele, it does 20 damage for each energy on the Pokemon it is attacking, and there it is, 20 damage being done to the Morlul, plus another 10 from the Poison Barb. And speaking of Poison Barbs, it is that being drawn for the Ebonies, and they are going to retreat the Morlul here, so they don't want it to be wiped off the board, and they are going to move, it looks like, the Lurantis onto that now active Fomantis. This Petal Blizzard only requires 1 energy, and it does 20 damage to all of the opposing Pokemon. Even those on the bench will not be safe. Lurantis does have 90 health. It will still have to contend with that Poison Barb, but it does receive a Poison Barb of its own as well. They are going with this Petal Blizzard, 20 damage all round there onto the Oricorio, the Phantom and the Tapu Lele, but there is that poisoning coming into play onto the Lurantis as the second Trevenant is pulled for the Constrictors here. Now Trevenant that has now been moved onto the bench does require 3 energy, whereas the Oricorio only requires 1, and there is the Guzma being played, so that Poison Barb on the Lurantis has been discarded. And it is another energy arrow coming from the Tapu Lele, targeting down the Lurantis, getting that additional 20 damage, bringing it down to 60 health. The poisoning bringing it down to 50, chipping away there as the Ebonies, they pull the Golisopod, another Pokemon that does require 3 energy to go on the offensive with that first impression. There is also the Leaf Cape in hand for the Ebonies, as Golisopod does receive its first energy, and it will be, by the looks of it, another Petal Blizzard, another 60 damage all round being split between this Ruins of Life deck. But again, that poisoning coming into play. Lurantis has 40 health remaining, and there's the second Bayonet being pulled for the Constrictors here. And there is a second of third energy going on to the Trevenant as another energy arrow. This does continue targeting down the Lurantis, and it is another 20 damage. Now it's got 10 health remaining. This will be the last opportunity for Lurantis to go on the offensive. The Shinotic has been pulled for the Ebonies, immediately coming online. It also requires 2 energy for the Flickering Light, and they are going to play the Mallow. Now if there were any energy on the Shinotic, it would have had to discard them, so very smart to play that before potentially putting energy onto the Shinotic. Second energy onto the Golisopod, Leaf Cape onto the Lurantis. That will bring its health up an additional 30 as that Petal Blizzard continuing 20 damage. That Oricorio has 10 health remaining, as does the Tapu Lele, but Lurantis has 30 health remaining itself, as the second Tapu Lele has been pulled for the Constrictors, and that Leaf Cape has actually kept Lurantis in this contest so far. Neither side has dropped a point inside of game 1, and this is a 3-game series where all 3 contests do count towards our leaderboard. You get 2 victory points for each game that you win, as that Big Malasada does restore 10 health for the active Tapu Lele, having 30 health remaining. And they are looking at getting a third energy onto the Trevenant. That is the play they're going with. They're going to retreat the Tapu Lele. Trevenant being moved into the active spot. And with this rack down 70 damage, Lurantis is discarded from the board. And this Ruins of Life deck will take our first point in this opening game. And the Ebonies, they are going to move the Golisopod into the active spot. They've only got this Shinotic in hand that they've just pulled. And they are getting that third energy, the first impression, 60 damage onto the Trevenant, wiping it off the board, immediately getting a point back here for the Turrfield Ebonies. Back and forth between these two sides very early on. They're not really separating themselves at the moment. It doesn't seem like anyone necessarily has the clear advantage, but they're going with the Oricoro, who only requires 1 energy. This Spiteful Dance does 60 plus, does 20 plus an additional 60 if one of their Pokemon were discarded in the previous turn thanks to the opponent's damage, which means they can get 80 damage onto the Golisopod. Spiteful Dance, huge damage. Oricoro is an easy target, but this could be a good play for the Constrictors as the second Wimpod is pulled by the Ebonies, and they are thinking of getting that onto the bench. It does require 3 energy for that Gnaw that only does 30 damage. Instead, they're opting to get a first energy onto the Shinotic, and another first impression being set up here for the Golisopod. And it did for a moment seem like they were contemplating a retreat, but Oricoro has been discarded, and the Ebonies get their second point with this Lush Jungle deck. They're 1 point away from taking game 1 as the Constrictors need to think about how they want to approach this. Now Tapu Lele would be able to do 60 damage to the Golisopod. They've got the Bayonets in hand, who only does 30 damage. That clock is ticking down. The Constrictors need to decide what they want to do here. They are running out of time, and they have decided to go with the Tapu Lele into the active spot. The leftovers has been pulled for the Constrictors. The Bayonet coming online. It does only require 1 energy as well. This is not a very energy hungry deck, so it allows them to get set up and online extremely fast. The second Tapu Lele also coming onto the bench here. And the Constrictors trying to think about this. They know that Shinotic is on the bench and it is capable of doing 50 damage. This Energy Arrow, they can target down the Golisopod and wipe it off the board as the Constrictors get their second point with the Ruins of Life deck. Now the Ebonies, they can move either the Shinotic or the Wimpod into the active spot, and they immediately go with the Shinotic. Again, that Flickering Light, 50 damage, only needs 1 more energy here. And that is exactly what they're going to do. Shinotic is set up and ready to take this third point for the Lush Jungle deck as they do take game 1 over the Ruins of Life deck, regardless of this coin flip. There is a Tails, so that doesn't benefit the Ebonies, but they don't care because they have won game 1 in our 3-game series. And as we have our first table reset, if you're enjoying what you're seeing, please leave a like and subscribe so don't miss out on any of the action in the PokeType League TCG. And for game 2, it will be the Ebonies going first with their Ruins of Abundance deck. Now we can see the Tapu Bulu that they do have in hand. They've also got the Execute and the Boon Sweep. They've got the Serena and the Rare Candy already in hand, and Serena only requires 1 energy. They get the Boon Sweep in the active spot, Tapu Bulu, Execute on the bench, the Milcery for the Constrictors in the active spot, the Mimikyu on the bench as they're playing their Thrifty Treats deck here in game 2. They've also got the Acerola, the Big Malasada, and the Poison Barb. But here we go, game 2 as the second Tapu Bulu is pulled for the Turrfield Ebonies. They send it over to the Constrictors, who do pull their second Milcery here. They do have that Sweets Relay. The first time, only 10 damage, but if it's done in consecutive turns, it does do that additional 20, as the Milcery does also get that Poison Barb. They do want to deter the Ebonies from going on the offensive. That Sweets Relay, like we said, 10 damage on the first time. They do not know, though, that there is a Rare Candy Serena in hand for the Ebonies, as a Steenie is pulled as well that they could use if they want, but they just want to get this Serena online immediately. This kick down immediately does 50 damage with only 1 energy required. This is a fantastic setup for the Ebonies, as this does allow them to have that Big Malasada sent back into the deck of the Constrictors. There will be the poison that the Serena has to contend with, but regardless, that first Milcery has been discarded from this match, as the Ruins of Abundance are trying to make quick work of this Thrifty Treats deck right now. It is the Mimikyu being moved into the active spot to do this Try to Imitate. It does require 2 energy, as the Slurpuff is pulled for the Constrictors. They do get a first energy onto the Mimikyu, knowing that it can outlast a hit from this Serena here, who is feeling the effects of that poisoning. The second Boon Sweep being pulled for the Ebonies. They are going to get a first energy onto that bench Tapu Bulu, as another kick down, another 50 damage. Mimikyu having 20 health remaining, and the Slurpuff is this time the card that is going back into the deck of the Constrictors, as the Alcremie now has been pulled for the Constrictors as well, so they can get that online. They're going to play the Acerola very intelligently. This will get 40 damage onto the Serena, and it will restore that 40 health onto Mimikyu, bringing it back up to 60, which means it can outlast another kickdown. And if they can get aheads with this Try to Imitate, they will be able to go for a kickdown of their own. But unfortunately, they do flip a Tails. This does buy the Ebonies a bit more time, because Serena would have been discarded thanks to that poisoning. The second Steenie being pulled for the Ebonies here, 8th second energy onto the Tapu Bulu as well, and another kickdown. Mimikyu has 10 health remaining. And unfortunately, the Constrictors did not play that Alcremie, so it's gone back into the deck, and they get a Slurpuff back out instead, so they cannot evolve this Milcery right now. But they can go for this Try to Imitate. Once again, they need to flip the heads, and again, it is a Tails. This buys the Serena more time. It has 30 health remaining. They have just pulled the Leaf Cape, though. This could get 30 health back onto the Serena, and that's exactly what they're going to do here. Although it looks like they did hesitate there. They were taking their time, but that is exactly what they've done, as that Leaf Cape does generate 30 additional health for the grass type that it is placed on. It does not work on any other type, but that kickdown does work, taking the Mimikyu off the board, and the Slurpuff is back into the deck, which means the Constrictors, the Thrifty Treats that can only move the Milcery into the active spot. And this is not good for this Thrifty Treats deck, as the Ebonies are looking to lock up this series, but they've pulled the Alcremie. Now, its Sweets Overload only does 40 damage for each time the Switch Relay has been used, and it's only been used once, which means it can only do 40 damage, but that will be enough to get the Serena off the board, because the 40 damage plus that 10 damage of poisoning will get it discarded. The Constrictors are able to get a point here, but the Ebonies, this Ruins of Abundance deck, are in full control. They are moving the Tapu Bulu into the active spot. It only requires one more energy, as the second Serena has been pulled for the Ebonies, but they're not concerned with that. This stuck in tackle, 100 damage if they flip a Tails, which has happened. Tapu Bulu does do 10 damage to itself, but that 100 damage is enough to wipe Alcremie off the board, and in full control, this Ruins of Abundance deck has taken game 2. And as we have our final table reset, we know that the Turrfield Ebonies have locked up this series, but the Constrictors can still get 2 victory points if they take game 3. It will be the Leaf Charge deck of the Ebonies, and we can see the 2 relics that they have in hand. They've got the Leafage relic and the Skill Dive relic, and they are going with the Skill Dive in the active spot, who only requires 1 energy. They both only require 1 energy. Second relic on the bench, the Constrictors here playing their Forbidden Light deck. They've got the 2 Oricoreas, they've got 1 Lunatone, and they've got their own Shiinotic, who has that Illuminate ability with the Oricorea in the active spot, Lunatone on the bench. But here we go, game 3, the Ebonies aiming for a clean sweep. The Constrictors trying to get 2 victory points, as the Dartrix is pulled for the Ebonies as well. Now, they can't generate energy on this turn, but by the time it gets back to them, they can get a Dartrix online, as the Molol has been pulled for the Constrictors. They do get that onto the bench. They are going to play the Poison Barb. Oricorea does require 2 energy for that Dazzle Dance. 40 damage does confuse the opposing Pokemon at the same time. They do send it now back over to the Ebonies, who pull another Dartrix. They are getting all the cards they need right now. They are having a phenomenal series here against the Constrictors, and they want that clean sweep. Both Dartrix online. It is the Skill Dive Dartrix in the active spot, and it will be able to do 20 damage to any of the opposing Pokemon. You are not safe on the bench, and that includes that Lunatone that has been targeted down, brought down to 70 health. As it comes back to the Constrictors, they do pull the big Malasada, and they are going to get their own Shiinotic online. Again, this Illuminate allows them to draw a random Pokemon from their deck, so they are going to do that, and they get their second Lunatone. We know that there are those Necrozmas in that deck as well that require 3 energy, but this Dazzle Dance set up 40 damage onto the Dartrix, halving its health and leaving it confused. And it is the Pheromosa being pulled for the Ebonies as well. They immediately get that onto the bench, and they're going to get the Decidueye online, who does require another energy for this Sniping Arrow. 70 damage to any of the opposing Pokemon. Shiinotic is the only one that cannot outlast a hit from Decidueye. and they've gone with the Lunatone. Interesting choice because that Oricorio is the only one that had energy on it as well. It would have taken another turn for the Constrictors to set up. Maybe they were too busy worrying about that Poison Barb. As the Beast Ball has been pulled for the Constrictors, they go with another Illuminate, and now it's the Dawn Wings Necrozma in hand that is immediately on the bench. That Psycho Ability does require 3 energy, does 100 damage as it does receive its first energy here, and they are going to go for the Dazzle Dance. This will leave Decidueye confused. It does bring it down to 50 health, but they need Decidueye to flip a tails if it goes on the offensive. It is the Leaf Cape being pulled for the Ebonies as well. They get a first energy onto that benched Dartrix, another Sniping Arrow. Again, they need to flip the heads. And they flip the tails. This is great for the Constrictors. It buys them a bit of time, especially as they look to set up this Necrozma. The second Molo being pulled for the Constrictors, and another Illuminate from the Shiinotic gets them the second Shiinotic in hand. And Necrozma getting its second energy as another Dazzle Dance leaves Decidueye with only 10 health remaining. There is that confusion remaining on it as the Lily has been pulled for the Ebonies. This restores 60 health from a stage 2 Pokemon, which is exactly what we see happening to Decidueye. Brought back up to 70 health now. They're thinking about how they want to approach this. They do get a first energy on to the Pheromosa, who only requires 1, and the Sniping Arrows will continue, but they need to flip the heads, and this time they are successful, but who will they target down? And they're going with the Shiinotic here, bringing it down to 20 health. And we have to keep in mind those Jump Blues from Pheromosa do also do 20 damage to a benched Pokemon on the side of the Forbidden Light deck. There is that Psych Ability band set up though for the Constrictors, getting its third energy. Necrozma moved into the active spot. They're looking through their hand. They go for another Illuminate here as they've just pulled the Beastite as well. The second Necrozma being drawn from the deck, immediately moved onto the bench as well. And this Necrozma 100 damage onto the Decidueye, wiping it off the board. But with that said, the Psych Ability does do 30 damage to the Necrozma at the same time. And the Ebonies immediately move the Pheromosa into the active spot as they draw out their second Pheromosa, as well. They do have the Lusamine in hand that can get those 2 energies that were discarded onto an Ultra Beast. They've also got the Beastite that does an addition, adds 10 damage to the offense of an Ultra Beast that is holding it. They are going with the Jump Blues here. We'll get 20 damage onto the Necrozma, but they're also going to take down the Shiinotic from the bench here. The Ebonies are 1 point away from a clean sweep. The Constrictors are trying to desperately bring this game back. And it is the Mallow being pulled for the Constrictors. As we know, it can restore a Shiinotic back to full strength here. Thinking about if they want to move the Pokemon onto that final bench spot. They can't play the Mallow because that Shiinotic was just discarded in the previous turn. It would have been perfect for them to be able to get it back to full strength. The second Necrozma getting its first energy. The Psych Ability takes down the Pheromosa. Another 30 damage onto the Necrozma. That recoil damage from going on the offensive, but it is the second point for the Constrictors. It is the Pheromosa moved in to the active spot for the Ebonies here, and they're going to get the Beast on it. This will make that Jump Blues do an additional 20 damage, and Necrozma only has 30 health remaining, and this means that the Turrfield Ebonies are going to clean sweep the Laverre Constrictors as they are looking to make it back into victory road for the 3rd straight season. And in impressive fashion, they have moved themselves back up into 5th place, as next round they are going up against the Petalburg Razors, whereas for the Constrictors, they're down to 7th place, but next round they are going up against the Levincia Wonders. But until then, Nidorinos, thank you so much for watching. Let us know in the comments below what cards you pulled today, and if you enjoyed what you saw, please leave a like, share, subscribe, but more importantly, always remember, send thanks, and I'll see you when you see me.